In this very special episode of Spilled Theory, we invited Brett Nelson on the show to talk about his career playing bass with Built to Spill. He is one of the longest running members in the band, besides Doug, who has always been the constant. And we had a great long talk about a lot of the details about being a musician in a successful and critically acclaimed indie rock band. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. And I want to thank Brett again for taking the time to join me. Thanks.
Hi, Jeff. It's Brett.
Hi. Nice to meet you. I was wondering, what was it like growing up in Idaho? I take it you grew up in Idaho?
I did grow up in Idaho. It's pretty boring. No, Twin Falls, growing up was a very small town. I think maybe like 26,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived 7 miles south out of town, like in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very boring. So probably one of the reasons I even found music was out of boredom. We had a piano, my dad had a guitar, my brother had a bass. So I was just kind of screwing around with those because there was nothing else to do. So Twin Falls was very boring.
Okay.
I guess is as far as I'm going with that.
I guess I can relate to that. The town that I moved to, we lived like 30 minutes away from everybody else, and so I kind of ended up listening to a lot of your band's music, and for whatever reason, it might have been the song Twin Falls that I kind of connected to and had a similar feeling about that.
Yeah, that kind of describes Twin Falls rather well.
Yeah.
Well, except for all the made up people in the song, I guess.
Okay, so they are fictional?
Yes.
Okay.
Doug is very good at making songs that seem like they're probably about someone, but they're not.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting and neat. I was going to ask a little bit more about if you came from a musical family, and did you play music in school growing up too?
My dad, when he was in high school, played in a surf rock band. No, but besides that was about it. I mean, besides playing me a lot of music, we always had music going on. Well, to tell you how old I am, driving around in the Lincoln Town Car with the 8-track of 60s and 70s music.
Yeah, that's cool.
But there wasn't really a lot of actual music going on at my house. Like, we didn't have like a family band.
So it sounds like your dad playing music, it definitely had that around, and that was like a possibility, that you were aware of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just the fact that he and my mom and my brother, we all loved music. Just nobody, my dad always played his guitar, but no one else really was musical, but we all listened to a ton of music. So it was a big part of growing up.
I feel like most musicians probably listen to a ton of it, and then how close they are to people that play it really influences that too. From what I've heard, Farm Days was the first band that you and Doug were in. Were you in other bands before that?
No, not really. I mean, I would get together with friends and we'd talk about being in a band, but we came up with a name and what we were going to do, and that's as far as it ever went. So yeah, Farm Days was the first real band that went and played shows.
Interesting. Do you remember how you and Doug met?
Yeah, actually we met, I think we were 12 or 13, and we met, I think it was maybe during lunch, and like you would eat lunch in the cafeteria and then everybody would go to like the gymnasium, play basketball or foosball or whatever, and we kind of met there and just started talking, and our big connection was we both loved comic books. So we just spent hours talking about comic books, and then spent a long time just having sleepovers and talking about comic books because neither one of us really played. I had like a Casio keyboard at the time that I kind of tinkered with because we had a piano at home also. But yeah, neither one of us really played an instrument at the time when we met.
Did you guys both write songs in Farm Days?
Yeah, we did. Like Doug sang most of them, but some of them I'd write the lyrics, and some he'd write the lyrics. But yeah, we both like wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Well, eventually he moved to Boise. I want to say the end of our 9th grade year,
Mm-hmm.
and so then I would take a bus up to Boise for the weekend, or he'd go back to Twin Falls. So we'd have songs that we would each write while we weren't together, and then some we wrote together. But yeah, we both wrote the songs.
Interesting.
Have you heard any Farm Day stuff?
I have. There's some footage on YouTube of the like a reunion concert. That's
Okay.
some of the best stuff I can find.
Yeah, I think that's about all there is.
Yeah, it's really neat. So I take it you played bass in there because that was a role that needed to be covered?
No, the way it worked out, like I said earlier, my brother had a bass, and then Doug's brother had a guitar.
Oh, okay. So you guys like kind of inherited the
So-
instruments?
So it just kind of worked out. He had a guitar, I had a bass.
Okay, yeah. Cool. I was reading in the this article that talks with Phil Eck, and he was mentioning how his connection to Built to Spill started because he recorded your band Butterfly Train first, and that's how that happened.
Yeah, our first record, Building Distrust from Trust, he recorded. And then I think it was right before There's Nothing Wrong with Love was recorded, like right around the same time. He had quit Tree People, moved back from Seattle to Boise, and he had a bunch of songs that he'd written, I guess, while he was in Tree People that weren't really Tree People songs.
Mm-hmm.
So he was planning on doing a side project anyway, and then he ended up quitting and came back and recorded Ultimate Alternative Waivers. Basically had like a deal, I guess, with a local studio where he could do it pretty much for free if he did it like in the middle of the night, because they didn't book anything, and we knew the owners. And so he kind of did that. And I don't know what his intent was. I think it was just to make the songs. I don't think it was to even start a band, because he was really, I think he was down on touring. He didn't really like touring. And I think a lot of things, I guess, that happened in Tree People, he just,
Right.
I don't think he was planning on actually making a band. I think he just wanted to make the songs, and that was it.
Sure.
In the beginning.
I was gonna ask about so with Tree People, I kind of gathered in reading about the name of Built to Spill and the idea behind it was that he wouldn't want to be in a band with people so long that things could turn ugly, or to keep things fresh too. That both those things would be the benefits of having a rotating band. Is that pretty much true?
I know the idea of the rotating members was to keep things fresh so you don't fall into the rut of, I guess, one sound, or feeling like you're just making the same song over and over again. Like it would bring in different elements.
Yeah.
Writing, because even if you're the one person that writes the songs, when you play them to other people, they're going to put in different inputs, and it'll change the whatever of the song.
Yeah, he seems like he likes keeping things fresh, and that different people are kind of a different spice and jamming and all that.
Yeah.
So you didn't play on Ultimate Alternative Waivers, right? Your first record with them is the next one?
Yeah. No, the first one was Brett Netson.
Okay.
Who played in Caustic Resin. He played bass and guitar on that, I believe.
Okay. Interesting. So There's Nothing Wrong with Love, I think, is an album a lot of people connect to because of how like direct and personal it feels and sounds. I think everybody probably has their own favorite songs on it. Do you have favorite songs on that album?
I love that whole album.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the I think one of the best ones done. And actually we some of the songs that were on the compilation The Normal Years were actually recorded before There's Nothing Wrong with Love with the same lineup. So we were going to play, I think our first show ever out of town,
Hmm.
and we stopped in Olympia at Calvin Johnson's studio
Hmm.
to record just some stuff for some 7 inches, and that came out. And then unless I'm mistaken, but I think that was we played at the Crocodile
Hmm.
in Seattle, and we weren't expecting it to be a sold out show,
Yeah.
but it
Wow.
was, and we were not a really good band at the time. And
Wow.
I can't remember, I think it was the Rocket or somebody.
Hmm.
The review of the show was Built to Spill started out as a studio band, and they should have stayed that way because it was horrible, and we weren't expecting. I mean, like, this Crocodile's not big. I think it's maybe 200-300 people, but I had never played to that many people.
Hmm. Oh,
So we
that's fine.
recorded
It's all
the normal year stuff, and then went to do There's Nothing Wrong with Love shortly after that.
In the morning, feeling half right. If it was more than just one day, I feel alright. Day is fat beneath the weight of next day, 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 next day.
Well, and when it started out, it was not. Basically, we did the 7 inches at Calvin's in Olympia,
Mhm.
and we made a couple of videos, maybe around that time, like the car video and Big Dipper. Have you seen those silly videos? Yeah, the Big Dipper and the original car video were done by just, I think, local guys that lived in Olympia, and we did both of them in the same day.
Wow.
But they're actually really they're really funny to watch because they are. I just remember, so the Big Dipper one, the idea was, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a guy, and we didn't know who he was. We just met him,
Mhm.
and they had like a garage with a bunch of tinfoil and tinfoil stars everywhere, and we were supposed to play along to the song, and then there was a guy that's supposed to be dancing around that had, I think it was like a big moon, like across his waist,
Mhm.
and the idea was he was supposed to be naked, but you could see parts of him that you weren't supposed to when he was dancing around. So I ended up playing in his boxer shorts.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, but they're just really, I don't know, they're really funny videos. Maybe just
Yeah.
because I was there and I was like, this is so ridiculous, but.
Yeah. In those videos, were they just trying to be different and kind of unique and catch attention like that?
I think they were going to is it Evergreen? What, some college, it's either I think it's in Olympia.
Mhm.
They were just like art video students and had to
Yeah.
make a project, I think. So they were just, and they liked to build Bill, so they just did it.
Interesting.
Like, I don't think they were supposed to last this long.
Okay.
And that could be seen.
I kind of ended up going to school for recording in part because of your band sounding great and wanting to learn how to do things like that. It's funny that student projects then would kind of keep living on and make a mark like that. I mean, there's so many good songs on There's Nothing Wrong with Love that it's hard to single some out. I really think that Car sticks out for the band.
Car, yeah, I think Car's like one of the best songs Doug ever wrote. It's like a perfect, just a perfect pop song. I think that's what I like about There's Nothing Wrong with Love, is just the pop element of it. You know, it's so,
Yeah.
there's parts that are, like I guess more rocking, but it's very, the whole thing is just super catchy and poppy. That's why I like it.
I was wondering, so we talked a little bit about Twin Falls, Dystopian Dream Girl. Do you have any good memories about that one?
I don't have any. I mean, I really like that song a lot. I like just the way, I guess, like the way that the rhythm of the guitar and the bass
Yeah.
kind of, I don't know if they play off each other. they're weird because they're not really together. I mean, I like that aspect of it, but
Yeah.
no, I love that. Like I said, the whole record, like the only song to me that's kind of iffy is Israel's song, and that's the only song. But
Yeah.
but every song on it, I think, is that Doug wrote is super great.
Yeah, with Dystopian Dream Girl, there's like this rawness of it. It's just alive and kind of running forward, and that's what I like so much about it. Do you remember at all, like, were you part of any of the discussion about the hidden track becoming a thing?
Phil Eck here with a preview of the next Built to Spill record.
That was, I think, kind of an idea that just like Doug had in the back of his mind that it would be funny to do.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of recording the record, we just kind of made all these songs up
Yeah.
and then recorded them. And I don't know if we ever thought it would actually be on there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty funny because I guess from what I've heard is some people really thought that maybe those were songs on the next record, which
Yeah.
is really funny because they're so stupid.
Yeah, it's
I haven't listened to that in forever. I'm trying to think of the kind of the country one about a man needs a
a man needs a woman.
a woman needs a man.
A woman needs a man to love, I think is the lyric. Yeah, there's so many good little fragments in there. I don't think I was aware that you guys wrote it. Yeah, it's just a really funny little gem that I remember when I was digging through this stuff. I was like, what about that Midnight Star song? Is that
There you go,
something that
Midnight
exists
Star.
somewhere? Yeah. So yeah, it's so funny and the probably the funniest part is the
Look for the record with me on the cover.
there's like
That was a
a
sneak preview of the
Muppet
new
sounding
Built to Spill
character
album.
that says
Yeah, that's Wayne Flower, who was the drummer for the Tree People. He happened to be in the studio at the time, so he was like, "Look for me on the cover."
So there's a pretty big difference. I gather the next album then was Perfect From Now On, right?
Yes,
And
yes, it was.
yeah, those two are really, really different because There's Nothing Wrong with Love is super immediate and direct and kind of short. And then Perfect From Now On might be kind of the most progressive and long thing that you guys have done. What do you think?
Yeah, I
about
don't think is every song on that thing like 6 minutes long,
it? Mhm.
pretty much. Well, what happened is we did the There's Nothing Wrong with Love, and then we did a nationwide tour for that record. And then at the end of the tour, I mean, that was it. We weren't actually a band. We were just Doug asked if we wanted, to play on the record, There's Nothing Wrong with Love. So we played it, and then it turned out there's the ability to have a tour. So we went on I think it was like a 6-week tour or something of the US,
Mhm.
and then came back, and then Butterfly Train was going in the studio for our second record.
Mhm.
And so basically that lineup was just done.
Mhm.
And then that's when Doug got Jason Bertram and Dave, the guys from Link,
Okay.
Dave Schneider. And they did a bunch of touring. I think that's when they did Lollapalooza. So like there was maybe like a year. And then Doug was working by himself on Perfect From Now On,
Mhm.
which the original idea was he recorded it with this guy. I think his name was Peter. He played in a band called the Purdens, a
Okay.
Seattle band.
Interesting.
And then Doug was playing the guitar and the bass and everything, because that's when he actually got signed to Warner Brothers. He was the only one in the band at the time.
Mhm.
So the original idea was he would play everything. So they recorded the record, and I don't know what it was. There's something he didn't like about it. So then he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, do you want to play, on this record?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Sure." And so once again, it was the rotating lineup thing, because then we had Scott Pluff.
Mhm.
He just quit the Spinanes,
Mhm.
and Doug was looking for a drummer, and Calvin Johnson said, "Hey, I know this guy that was a good drummer that was in the Spinanes."
Mm-hmm.
So we jammed with Scott, and then went in to record that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea of that was we were just going in to record. I mean, there was no intention that we were going to be a band with that record or anything.
Right, still kind
We
of
were
a
just
studio band sort of thing.
Yeah, we were just going to play on it, and that was going to be it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'm not sure if like Doug thought the chemistry was great, so he asked Scott and I to be in the band, or if the rotating member thing seemed like a pain in the butt, or
Yeah.
so then somehow we ended up being in the band actually. But
Yeah.
that record is it was kind of weird because Doug he had it already recorded,
Mm-hmm.
so he could give us the songs and say, "Here's the songs, learn the songs."
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, that record was pretty much I was just learning Doug's bass parts on that record
Okay,
if there was like a bunch of jammy, long, which obviously there's a lot of jammy parts.
Mm-hmm.
But I could put in whatever I wanted. But for the most part, I was just learning Doug's bass parts that he already had because they were very. He writes well, like how you're talking earlier about Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that record seemed very kind of like a '60s kind of Beatles sort of thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah, for sure, like really orchestrated. And I guess the thing that I kept thinking about is like Brian Wilson used to come up with little like sections, like in what's the song? Good Vibrations. He has these big
Uh,
sections, and that's kind of what the songs seem like. Um
yeah, and that had a lot going. Because I remember we brought in a Mellotron, and we had a whole bunch of different weird instruments and like a Moog synthesizer, and
mhm.
which had never really been on any other Built Spill records. But I remember being in the studio a lot with that one.
Yeah. On There's Nothing Wrong with Love, that was you coming up with your own bass parts then?
Yeah, that was Doug showed us, hey, here's a song, and then just came up. I come up with a bass part that fit it.
Okay. And then the story for Perfect from now on is that you guys ended up recording it like 3 times because of basically the tapes getting damaged in the sun, is what I had heard.
Yeah, so it was all recorded, and Phil Eck was driving from Seattle to Boise to do maybe guitar overdubs or something.
Mm-hmm.
And his car didn't have AC, and there's something about the heat in I don't know how tapes are made, but so the reels, like something they didn't play right when he got to Boise to do the overdubs.
Yeah.
So we ended up going back to Seattle and re-recording it, which actually turned out a lot better than the first time because Scott and Doug and I had been playing those songs this whole time. So the next time we re-recorded it, we were way more comfortable. Cool. So I think it felt less rigid, like we knew what we were doing instead of kind of guessing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it feels like it could go either way. Like it's hard to top something that was good, or sometimes more practice just will naturally be better. And so I was curious, do you think that it changed much over the different versions of the album? You think it's more confident and kind of clear in vision what it was going to be?
Yes. Yeah, I think that I think maybe as it went on, especially with Doug, who was there to write it, then record it, and then record it, and then record it. I think as time went on, he kind of captured more of what he envisioned the record being like.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so. It's really impressive, the commitment and the patience that had to have taken. I know most people would just kind of give up maybe after the first time.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't know what he didn't like with the first version that had that Scott and I weren't on at all. Um, I don't know. He's got way like he's like a perfectionist in the way of I don't know, I guess like a record sounding maybe fluid, the way it flows, and so I don't know
Yeah,
if he didn't like the way it flowed, like the 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 way he like Peter played the drums or the way he played the bass or
right.
anyway, I don't know. He just wanted to redo it and
Yeah.
which was good because then I got to be on it.
So I remember, I think around the time that it got reissued, there was a extra track on it. I think it was called Easy Way. Um, do you know of any other outtakes that are possibly um, still out there?
I don't think I even knew of that one.
Okay, so it's possible. I guess in that case, it sounds like it might have been something that had been done previously or on the side that kind of got finished up and decided it was good to go.
It might have been. I mean, there were always like sometimes there'd be an idea and we'd record it in the studio, and
Mhm.
then it may have been something Doug took home and finished. I know there's a couple instrumentals that is Easy Way an instrumental?
That's a good question. I think it is. It's possible that one might have been put out with Keep It Like a Secret. There's another one that came out with Perfect from Now On. Um, it so Easy Way has a lyric to it. I'm trying to remember.
I'm gonna have to Google that eventually. I don't because I don't know. There's always a bunch of stuff that was recorded and not used. There's like you record 15 songs and 10 go on the record and five you
Yeah.
don't know. Somebody just posted a thing of when we covered Mr. Crowley.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess we recorded it in Doug's studio at his house, and I don't remember that at all. I
Yeah.
was like, "What? We recorded this?"
So evidently Easy Way was the B-side from the Perfect from Now On reissue, and then a song called Forget Remember When was on the Keep It Like a Secret reissue.
See, and forget remember when I do remember that.
Okay. And was that done pretty much at the same time as the rest of the album? It was considered a potential
Yeah, I
track.
think it was a song that just wasn't working out, so it got
Hmm.
scrapped and then finished later.
Yeah.
Like the bass and the drums were kept, and everything else was new.
Yeah. I mean, was it difficult to learn all the parts to those songs? I know that "Kicked It in the Sun" is one of my favorites, and some of those songs change pretty drastically, like right on a dime. And
Yeah, the it's not so much the like if it were a time change or a tempo or it's Doug plays a lot of notes. And so
yeah,
to learn his bass parts, well, especially like Kicked It in the Sun, there's all this like you're just walking down or going up or it was just not really my style of playing.
right,
Um, so kind of in a way, it was sort of difficult in that way to because I was playing, Doug style, which to me felt more like kind of a '60s kind of playing.
as we're talking about your bass playing, I was curious about the so the kinds of basses that you've played over the years, and if they've been different on the record and the amp and things like that.
So the only different bass was actually on Perfect from Now On because it seemed kind of '60s ish. So I used a '78 Rickenbacker
Okay,
and
interesting.
then got flat wound strings. So they weren't super bright. They were more, I guess, '60s sounding.
Hmm.
And besides that, every other record, I found a Vox bass from the '80s
Okay.
um, at a pawn shop that I bought. It was like a $300 bass
Hmm.
that I had for 16 years till we were on tour and it got stolen. But um, that was played on every other record.
Okay, and is that sort of the natural wood looking one that I had seen live in a
Yeah,
few pictures and videos?
yeah,
Okay.
that's That's the Vox guy that got stolen.
Ah. And when you were recording those, I'm assuming, so I guess it's kind of standard practice to record like a DI and a mic'd amp. Is that pretty much how it went?
Yeah, and actually the amp, maybe it was a trainer. There's some little amp, a little tube amp that I think Doug bought that basically for them on, at least on the earlier records, was all the same amp. I'm not sure what it was. But I remember there being like a little tube amp that I don't recall.
People seem to like the trainers because they're similar to Bassman's for kind of a lower cost typically.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that even what it was. I remember that we used it on, maybe we used it on Perfect From Now On, and Doug liked it. We rented it from a place in Seattle, and then he just bought it because he liked the way it sounded, and it was used on the next couple of records.
Interesting. So moving on to Keep It Like a Secret, that's an album that had been getting a lot of attention lately because they were kind of doing the anniversary tour. And that seems a little bit like a return to form, to the formula on There's Nothing Wrong with Love. It's kind of short, catchy pop songs, but kind of higher fidelity. So I would be curious to hear some of your thoughts about making that one.
That one actually is my favorite record we made because with Perfect From Now On, like I said, we were basically just learning Doug's parts. And on Keep It Like a Secret, it's pretty much everybody wrote whatever they wanted their part to be. Yeah. And it was kind of written all together. Trying to think, there's a couple songs maybe Doug brought, like You Were Right was like a full song, and maybe Carry the Zero, and everything else was just us jamming to write the songs. So I felt it was it represented me, Doug, and Scott as actual musicians, like what we would want in a band.
Yeah, for sure. In one of the Wikipedia like press releases, it talked about that you guys jammed a lot to come up with those parts, and that it was kind of collaboratively pieced together, and Doug was kind of the editor in that process and helped put those together like that.
Yeah, it was like hours and hours of us just jamming. He recorded everything and then went back through and he listened to everything and we called them snippets. And he would take this snippet and put it with this snippet and just kind of wrote the song that way, taking this little snippets of the songs and putting together. So some of them are like really, what's the one? Temporarily Blind, which I love that song, and it's just so weird because I mean it's kind of obvious that it's snippets, but it all fits together. Yeah. And something we recorded in the studio, and I thought this is never gonna make it on the record because there's no way you could put lyrics, or a melody over this weirdness. So I really thought it was gonna be scrapped. And then when I heard it with vocals, I was like, wow, that's, like one of my favorite songs. A beautiful melody, great lyrics. And I was like, so I don't know how he pulled that one off, but
yeah, I feel like that's probably one of the most underrated on the album because it's super catchy like that. With a song like The Plan, there's this thing in an earlier episode, a section I kind of called the like machine gun bridge, and I was wondering if you guys had a name for that, the part where the snare drum goes like da 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 da, or a simpler way that you would refer to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we had anything we called that besides the drum roll. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess to me it's one of the most like contrasting sections in a Built to Spill song. There's like in Out of Sight, there's a really good moment where like things are like really tense, and then it changes to like being upbeat and really happy and fun. And then in The Plan, it's like It's almost like there's a war starting or something. It's a way that I guess I've internalized how that feels. And so yeah, I guess I was curious if you guys called that something else, or it was just probably part of the song.
Yeah, I don't really recall. I haven't listened to. I haven't actually listened to a Built to Spill record in probably 5 or 6 years. But I just don't. Every now and then I have like an MP3 player I listen to in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes Built to Spill, like a song will pop on. And it seems like it's always like Ancient Melodies. What was that? Ancient Melodies of the Future, from the Future?
Yeah.
Whatever. And when we recorded that record, I didn't like it. And I did not really like any of the songs on it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But then I hear they'll randomly just play on my MP3 player. And I'm like, oh that was a really good song. Why didn't I like it at the time?
Yeah, it's weird how, I mean, so your own songs, I think, can be like that. And then the way you connect to music that has already been put out can change over time for sure. Do you have any fond memories of Carry the Zero? I think that's a lot of Built to Spill fans' favorite song.
No, not really. Just, I mean, it being another song, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember there being anything studio-wise, or, I mean, it is years of like being the last song we'd play, because everybody loved it. And it's kind of one of those songs where, for the most part, I just play the same thing over and over, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's pretty much the same progression, and then at the end it simplifies a little bit to 2 chords, and then there's like an outro.
So at the end, it goes to like chords, like I'm playing an A, but and on the G string it goes up,
Mm-hmm.
and so the Vox bass that got stolen had a 2-octave neck.
Okay.
So I could just go up, and then when it was stolen, I couldn't go up to that note anymore because I didn't have that note.
Right. Yeah. It's not as many frets.
It's like 1 fret too short.
Wow. Was that a active bass? It kind of looked like it was.
Yeah, I switched it over. I had them put active pickups in it because it seemed tone-wise it was all over the place, like too bassy or too. It didn't seem very even. So I had my friend Andy Eigenbrod put active pickups, who owned a local music store here.
Interesting. So one thing I wanted to be sure to ask about, because this might be the most highlighted bass part in all of Built to Spill songs, Time Trap, the beginning of that one, that's something that you wrote and liked pretty well?
Yes, I like that. But once again, that was the 2-octave bass.
Yeah.
So the beginning part, the very first chord, the high note wasn't there once I had a normal bass. So I'd have to tune. What did I do? I tuned up the G string half a step to play the beginning part. And then when it went to the little break, when it's just the guitar and Doug, before the drums and the bass come in, I had to hurry and tune it back down half a step to play the song.
Wow. So you did that live then? You were tuning
Yes.
between sections?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't find another bass that had a 2-octave range that I liked.
Interesting.
Besides the Vox. So that kind of, like the end of Carry the Zero, I just skipped playing that one note because it didn't really matter. But kind of the beginning of Time Trap, it did matter. So
yeah,
that's what I came up with, was tuning the string. I guess tuning it down. I don't know. I can't remember because I didn't. It was still one note, 1 fret short.
Yeah. I remember when I got a bass, I was trying to think of what Built to Spill songs I would learn how to play, and I was like, well, that one has the bass part at the front, and it's kind of a bass solo, and that made a lot of sense to try to learn it. And it might have been a little awkward because I didn't know to adjust it to play it the way that you did. The song Else is really beautiful, and it's pretty ambient and almost synth like. Do you remember kind of the way that ended up happening?
That I think maybe that whole song started with the bass line, the dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
It, to me, just seemed for some reason kind of like a 80s new wave song.
Yeah, I've heard some people possibly refer to like is it Kraftwerk or somebody like that? Kind of a new wave sort of band.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I guess the rhythm of it is maybe what a lot of people played on synthesizers in the 80s, like a dun 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 dun, dun, you know?
Yeah, definitely electronic sounding bass and drums on that one.
And then Scott's drums being how they kind of I want to say it's like a start stop thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like totally, they almost seem more like mechanical.
Yeah, kind of
Like a drum.
kind of choked out, and maybe it's possible they sampled it or did some other kind of trick there.
Anyway, no, yeah, and that's just the way he played it. I mean, so it's
Sure.
but yeah, the way it was written. So it just reminded me of a kind of like a, I don't know, like an 80s new wave song.
Yeah. Yeah, that one, I guess it struck me. It sounds a little bit like Eastern, sort of like it could be a George Harrison type song, like Within You, Without You. And there's two ways that I sort of take the lyrics, and you might have the same or different interpretations. The need for other people seems to be the main meaning, but then I guess some people have interpreted it also to be like either bad habits or vices or something, how those consume you. And I think those are interesting interpretations, and sometimes it can combine both of those too.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever really just the way Doug writes lyrics, I don't really, I guess, try to interpret them. I don't think he generally ever writes anything super personal. I think it's
Sure.
with him, I think it's the melody maybe comes first, and then filling in that melody with words that fit.
Yeah, and
I mean, and maybe if they do have a deeper meaning, he's always been someone that would rather, instead of being like, oh, this song's about this, he'd rather leave it open.
sure.
Because, if you think it's about something and then he's like, no, it's about this, then it kind of ruins the song for you. Yeah, I always thought it was like this, and
A lot of them seem intentionally vague, and I think that's what makes them powerful, because they can mean different things to the same person at different points in their life. And I think that's pretty cool. So I guess we could probably move on to Ancient Melodies of the Future. So with this one of my good memories of it is my English teacher in high school had a poster of it in his classroom, and by this point I think I was already a Built to Spill fan, and so it was kind of cool. He also had like a John Coltrane poster. That was a neat influence. Do you remember how those songs came together? It sounds like you were a little less thrilled with them in general.
yeah, it was like a weird mixture of There's Nothing Wrong with Love, where Doug had set songs, and then you had Perfect From Now On, where it was like learn these parts. So he kind of already had a lot of set parts, where there was a little more to make up your own. But I just don't, I don't know. That record just never really. I love the song "You Are."
Yeah.
The weather, Fly Around, My Pretty Little Miss is always fun to play live, but I just I don't know.
Yeah.
Even in the studio, it didn't seem like it was coming together
Yeah.
in the way I liked. I don't know how anyone else felt.
Fly Around My Pretty Little Miss is one of my favorites. I also like Strange a lot, and The Weather was a favorite. Something interesting about Strange and Dystopian Dream Girl is I noticed there's a little bit of a similarity. I don't know if it was intentional or possibly like a jumping off point from the Pixies, "Where Is My Mind." There's kind of a similar chord progression there, and I was wondering if you were ever aware of it, or anything.
No, I wasn't. I'll have to listen to that now, and I never really thought of that.
I think both of those songs are like E, C sharp minor, A, and then B, which is it's 1 6 4 5. So I mean, it's really common, and it could have come from anywhere, but I guess it's something that popped into my head, or I might have seen somebody say. But yeah, both those songs are some of my favorite catchy Built to Spill songs. After Ancient Melodies of the Future, I hear there was kind of a long hiatus, and that point is when I started to be a fan of you guys. I have been younger, and took a while for me to learn and mature my tastes. After that was You in Reverse, which was the first new album that I was able to look forward to and buy. Do you remember that one pretty well?
Yeah, that one. Pretty much, we went back to. It wasn't really. It was sort of based on jams, not to the extent of Keep It Like a Secret. But it was kind of the same, trying to do the same idea. But it was a little less. I think Doug took the snippets and then wrote maybe parts with the snippets versus just putting all the snippets together. But yeah, that record I really like a lot. And I think it might be the first record that Jim Roth was actually a total member of the band. Am I wrong about that?
From what I gather, he toured with you guys for Keep It Like a Secret, and then
for
apparently
years.
wasn't.
Yeah. He was just a touring musician, and then I think he actually joined the band on this record.
Yeah, he's an incredible guitar player too, playing a lot of the slide stuff, and then when you guys ended up covering Freebird, covering that.
Yeah, the fact that he and Netson pulled off all that solo stuff at the end.
Yeah.
It was so fun to watch it every night when they'd play it, because like Doug Scott and I are just playing the most simplest boneheaded thing, and those guys are like all this stuff going on. So it was fun.
Yeah, I can tell that he seems super passionate about guitar playing. And,
yeah, and he's amazing. Like, he can just figure out anything and play pretty much any style. He's just very all over the place, where he can just do whatever.
Yeah.
And do it well.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a couple things to mention on You in Reverse. So for Conventional Wisdom, that was a pretty big song to me. I used to like sing it in my head when I was running cross country because it's long, kept a lot of energy. And I remember the video that you guys did. That looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun video. I think it was somebody at Warner Brothers knew somebody that had this idea. So we went to this guy outside of, I think, LA, and he has a ranch. And he does maybe like medieval festivals or something. So they kind of had this loose idea of what was going on. I just remember it was really hot, and it was really weird to do.
It looks like you guys have a blast in the video. It kind of seems like friends hanging out mostly, you know.
No, we had a good time. It was just, videos are always kind of weird anyway.
Yeah, for sure, because you're kind of expected to do something.
But no, that was a fun video to make for sure. And I think maybe the first one where we actually went and did something. Like the other ones that Mike Shear did were mostly like stop motion with clay and stuff.
Sure.
So I think it's the first one where we actually went and tried to make a video.
It sounded like the intention with that album is kind of to capture a little bit more of the live sound. It sounded like a lot of the album was done live or with that intent.
Yeah, the original idea was we were going to play it over and over and over till everybody played their part, and it was recorded live, which lasted maybe a day or two. And it's like, the longer Scott and I would play stuff, the worse we would get.
Oh, and on
'Cause
Going Against Your Mind, that song is incredibly difficult to do perfectly for 8 minutes.
Yeah, well, you kind of want the rhythm section to feel like it's flowing and free, but it's locked in. And the longer Scott and I did stuff, the sloppier we got. And so there was like a lot of it was done live, but not the way that the original idea was, which is we're gonna do this all live, which didn't work.
So the song "Liar" is really popular. It's kind of maybe one of the easiest to latch on to of the new batch of Built to Spill songs. I was going through songs and comments, and somebody in the comments high up on that song on YouTube said, I would like the bass in the song to be a person so I could marry them. And I thought it was really funny. To be honest, that the bass line in that song is one of the first things that I learned to play by ear. It's that perfect match of something catchy, driving forward, but like simple enough for a high school kid to pick out.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole song's just the same 4 chords, notes, but it's kind of, it's like trying to do the same thing over and over, but have it evolve in a subtle way so it doesn't sound like it's doing the same thing over and over. But yeah, and that's one. Yeah, another one where the bass and the drums just needed to be super simple. Like that was the foundation of its pretty much. Because I'm trying to even think of. I don't think the bass really changes a whole lot in that whole song, does it?
I don't think so. You're right that in a lot of those, the bass and drums lock in and seem to stay that way through most of the song. Those are the main 2 moments that I think of as far as bass playing. Going Against Your Mind as being kind of a marathon of keeping up with locking in that rhythm, and that had to be crazy difficult to tour with as well. And then Liar is sort of a similar line.
Yeah, the Going Against Your Mind is when I was in 8th grade, I was a huge A Flock of Seagulls fan. And the Frank Maudsley, their bass player, you can't tell it from like any songs around the radio because everything there was a hit, it's like a bum bum bum, but he actually has a lot of very rhythmical things, and one of them, basically the Going Against Your Mind riff, is like stolen from Frank Maudsley.
Interesting. That's cool.
There's a song called I think Remember David, and it's like a doop 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 doop. And so that was kind of my version, my take on that.
That's awesome. So, a band that I got into because of that song was Television. People said in the comments somewhere that it was like one of their main songs. The 2 chords, like B minor and D, I think. And so I was like, well, I have to listen to that more if I like this.
Are you talking Marquee Moon, that record?
Yeah, Marquee Moon, I think. Was that mentioned at all, or were you guys?
No, that's the one Television record I love. It's that I have that, and I think they did a live one called The Blow Up.
Yeah,
those are the only 2 I've heard, but that's a great record, though.
Both Television and you guys, everything seems like so intentional and planned out and layered. I think is what attracts me to both of those. Going to ask also about your favorite bass players and players that you looked up to, and you already mentioned one. Were there others too that?
Yeah, I guess, starting playing bass in the 80s, it wouldn't be. You'd have to say Mike Watt, because
for sure,
hello, he's like the best bass player ever.
Yeah.
I was a huge Replacements fan, like Tommy Stinson.
Okay, I thought that might be one. Yeah.
When he was first playing was like 14, 15, just tearing that up. Carl Mueller, that played in Soul Asylum.
Okay.
He was great. I don't know. For the most part, I had bass players I liked, but I didn't want to ever look at playing the bass like I'm playing the bass.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Like I felt it would lock you in. So like the idea with Butterfly Train, that first record, is it was two bassists.
Mm-hmm.
So I played more guitar stuff, and then we had a bass player. So kind of on the whole, I just like to listen to music as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
But those were definitely, in the 80s stuff had some really great bass players.
Yeah.
Was it Colin Moulding that played for XTC?
Hmm.
Always played really great. It always kind of was weird 60s sounding kind of runs and stuff.
I had somebody on Reddit ask about they thought that earlier on you were kind of playing more chords and things like that, and then possibly later on you were playing like single note things. And in addition to that, I was kind of wondering how you see the role of bass in Built to Spill, and what you try to do when you're coming up with a new line.
It all kind of varies, I guess, with whatever the song is.
Mm-hmm.
There's some songs that really just need to play. Like what's the song "You Are" that we were just talking on the last record?
Mm-hmm.
Doug kept thinking, he's like, "Hey, don't you think you should play something more?" Because I play the exact same thing for the whole song.
Yeah.
And I was like, I felt there was so much more interesting stuff to listen to that it seemed that was better if it was just a foundation that repeated.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, well, when you're younger, it's like, how many notes can I play, to this guitar play chord? Because you're like, oh, I'm going to be, like all over the place. And then you get older and then you kind of like, oh, you appreciate maybe the structure of the music more.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think everything just in time changed, of like, this song needs chords, this song doesn't need chords. But yeah, like in the earlier stuff, I played a lot of chords.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like chords on the bass.
A beginner songwriter, they're looking for a lot of feedback, and it sounds like you being close friends with Doug, that you guys gave each other feedback, and is that pretty much how it went all through the band?
Yeah, I mean, there was always, because if you're playing something and you're like, whether you have two versions, like, do you like this one or do you like the alternate? And, like you just ask everybody and they're like, I like this one, or what if this one did that? But so, yeah, kind of like just being a soundboard for one another.
And that's really helpful too. Sounds like everybody kind of just goes with their gut feeling, and then that ends up making better things.
Yeah, and there's always, I mean, with Doug being the primary, because he's writing the melody and the vocals, so we'll say like more of a primary songwriter of it. Mm-hmm. There's, if I'm playing something that he feels clashes with the vocal melody or something, then that'll change, or if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense to me. We could switch gears and talk more about your solo projects. It sounds like those are much more synth driven. There's been some other projects, but then the latest one is Sick Wish, and I was curious. I've kind of gotten into synths lately and wondered like what your favorite synths are, or synths that you're wanting.
I'm not much of a, I guess, like a gearhead with synths. I found my favorite synth, it's an Ensoniq SQ80. Came out like I think 1984. Mm-hmm. Didn't make a big splash. No one gives a crap about it, but it has an 8-track sequencer on it, so you can lay stuff down. And I've just had it for, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so. Mm-hmm. And I did for a while. I collected a bunch of different stuff. I mostly love drum machines.
Okay, yeah.
Like I had, at one point, I don't know, maybe like 10 different old drum machines. And I was like, well, this is kind of ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not really a lot about gear. It's more about the sound, I guess.
Sure.
Like just the vintage synth sound. Like a lot of the newer ones, I don't like the way they sound.
Yeah, I guess the gear pitfall is kind of a dangerous one to fall into, because you end up not writing as much music and collecting things instead. Some people might be curious about the pedals that you played for bass while in Built to Spill. Did you play with many pedals, or was it mostly straight in?
We tried different things and it just never really worked out. So I always just had a tuner.
Okay.
Well, I had a delay pedal for a while.
Mm-hmm.
When it was a 3-piece, just me, Scott, and Doug,
Mm-hmm.
and we do like big jams. I had like a 2-second loop on it,
Okay.
so I could loop. When I went into the jam part, I could loop a bass part and then play something over that.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, I just like overdrive and chorus and whatever. I never thought it sounded very good. So
Sure.
almost everything is just me and a tuner.
Yeah, I guess some bass players like compressors, but those are like a real subtle and sensitive thing. And I don't know, I can see a lot of people taking or leaving a compressor.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems the more you introduce, the more of a pain in the ass it becomes.
Yeah, yeah, it's less things to carry too, less things to carry and less things to break, and that's always better.
Yes, less things to go wrong than
Yeah,
when you're setting your stuff up. If it doesn't work, it's the cord of the tuner.
yeah. On that note, I'm curious if there's advice that you would give younger musicians after something like 15 years of touring. Are there things that you learned how to do better?
I don't think so. It's everybody always thinks it's fun, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, touring is hurry up and wait.
Yeah,
Get up to drive somewhere, to get to the club, to
sure.
load in, to wait to sound check, you wait to play,
Yeah.
you load out, you just do it over again the next day.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's not really, you know what? The one thing I did find is always I get up early.
Mhm.
I like to drink my coffee.
Mhm.
So I would always, before I'd go to bed, I would Google, if there was a Starbucks nearby.
Mhm.
So you could get your coffee. You could, go to the bathroom. And but that's me. I like to plan ahead. I like to know what I'm in for.
The synth-driven and 80s music has definitely come back, and it seems to me that you were early. You kind of beat that trend. What do you think about that?
I don't know. Like honestly, the one thing that really got me into wanting to play music
Mhm.
is like 80s new wave music.
Mhm.
So it's always had a place in it's my favorite, whether it be like Echo and the Bunnymen or New Order.
Mhm.
So when I did all that stuff, I just was curious if I could pull that off.
Yeah.
Take a guitar driven band and make it keyboards and maybe not boring. I'm not sure if I pulled that off or not, but
Yeah.
that was the idea with that thing.
I think it's really neat to hear songs that you know and love, kind of remixed, reimagined, kind of covered in a different style. New Order was the band I was thinking of. For Else, I think people.
Oh yeah.
Similarities there.
Yeah, Doug's a big New Order fan, so I could see that.
I had heard Sick Wish a couple times, but I was listening more to it before being able to talk to you. And I was really impressed by a few of the songs. And then the drummer is really impressive. And there's a lot of energy, too, in those songs.
Yeah, we actually write all the songs ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone will bring an idea to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually started because when I left Built to Spill in 2012, my son said, "Hey, we should start a band."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "That's really weird because I'm old enough to be your dad because I'm your dad because it's my son that plays drums."
Yeah.
Anyway, and then we started doing it. And it actually has been super great. It's to see just like his drive and excitement.
Yeah.
Reminds me of like, oh, I used to be that way when I was 16, or
Yeah.
and then somewhere you get going on tour and it's more like a job and you're like, you kind of loses its luster and you're not excited about it.
For sure.
It's been really cool playing with Jonah because he's super involved and excited about it, and then the other two guys are his friends that he went to high school with, so it's me and some 24-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of not the leader as much as I'm the dad
Okay.
of the whole group.
I take it you are singing on it, and maybe that's my misconception that you're a leader in it.
Yeah, no, I write all the lyrics,
Mhm.
but yeah, music wise, it's really great because it's everybody brings something to the table, and it's a really great dynamic. Like if I do something that's really stupid, then they'll call me out and be like, "That sounds stupid. Don't do that."
Yeah.
Kind of the idea is you can't have your feelings hurt because this is a safe space. Everyone can be honest.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's cool because the taste in music ranges from like your taste in music goes from the 80s to being a professional in the 90s, and then they have kind of younger tastes and influences, and it's really cool. On a couple of those songs, I kind of hear some like Flaming Lips and Tame Impala kind of drums.
Craig would love you, some Impala, because he likes Tame Impala.
Yeah. The songs that I wrote down that were my favorites, "See You," I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but RII,
RLL,
RL.
the instrument.
Yeah, that's a great one. And then "Goodbye Sun, Hello Moon" was another one that I liked.
Yeah, so the "See You" song is actually a guitar player we had when we started, Marty Chase Martin. So he sings that one. He's got an amazing voice. And then he quit the band to move back to Colorado, and that's when we got Craig, who we now have. So we went through. We have a different keyboard player than the original two, but I guess that's Eddie's been in the band for about 2 years, so it kind of evolved. Like the first record was way more maybe post-punky, and then the next record was a little more. I don't know, maybe shoegaze, dreamy guitar sounding.
Okay. Yeah.
And the last one, which is the "Goodbye Sun, Hello Moon," is kind of what we should sound like because it's everybody that's in the band now played on the record, wrote the songs.
A few other questions that I have for another musician and songwriter. When you're writing songs, is there something that you try when you feel like you're stuck in a rut or can't come up with ideas?
I think that's the time when you just honestly just set it down and walk away for a while.
Yeah.
I think the best, at least from my point of view, the best things come like they're organic.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you'll spend hours trying to figure something out, and you think you're getting somewhere, but then when you listen back to it, you're like, it's like you tricked yourself into thinking you're getting closer when you're getting further away.
Yeah.
Like if like with Sick Wish, if we have a song structure and pretty much it's not set by the end of a practice, then we usually just scrap it because we're going to overthink it and it's going to be crappy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. In the process of recording too, if something isn't happening or doesn't feel right, a break seems to be like the best way to improve it rather than just like trying to force it.
Yeah, because you're just like flogging a dead horse. It's
Yeah.
at least from what I feel like. I don't well, and even instances with Built Spill where things would go on and on and on, and then not get any closer, and then you end up just scrapping everything you just did all day in the studio because it's not getting where you want it to be. It's like,
Yeah. Do you ever feel like when you're writing a song that you come up with a really good idea and then you're kind of scared to add anything to it because you don't want to mess it up?
yeah, but that kind of goes right back to that. I'll always add something to it. Usually it ends up being back. Like, so we have a song because we're in the studio during the pandemic. We can't play shows or tour. So
Right.
we were just like, oh, we'll write songs and go back in the studio. And we have a song, and we had it recorded for maybe a couple months. And then I had all these ideas of where the song would go. And so we spent a whole practice doing all this different stuff. And then finally just realizing we just went right back to what the original, the day we jammed it.
Yeah.
It was like, we're just making it worse. So it ended up being exactly what was just written 6 weeks earlier.
Yeah, it's funny. Like sometimes the gut feeling or the demo is the best it's gonna be, and
Sometimes, you do add stuff. And what I like is, like, half the time when we record our practices, and then Jonah will listen to it, I'll listen to it, but Craig and Eddie never do. So they'll come back and they're like, well, I don't remember what I played. And if it's something really great, I'll be like, we got to listen to what you did. But for the most part, as it evolves, especially with Craig on the guitar, he just, every practice, half the time will play a different part, but it just gets better and closer, and it just makes the whole song better.
yeah,
Which he's not intentionally doing. He just can't remember what the hell he did. A lot of
Yeah.
practice.
yeah.
But he just gets better as he's going through it.
I bet the reception whenever you guys play shows in your hometown is pretty big.
We play maybe 1 or 2 shows a year. So, and I think that kept it to where people would come out more rather than if you play a lot, then people are like, oh, I just saw them last month, I don't care. But
Right.
and usually when we would play local shows, it was a benefit for something locally or for somebody or something. They were generally always benefits.
As a band, you guys seem pretty socially and politically aware.
Yeah, Doug and Brett Netson are super aware of, like, politically involved and aware of things, where maybe the rest of us, like me, I'm not like, it's not that I don't follow things as closely as they do. I'm just
Yeah.
maybe more skeptical, or just like,
Yeah, kind of
I don't know.
moderate or centered or something.
yeah, in a way, because kind of, especially with politics, a lot of it you can. I'm not sure much is gonna change, and I'm not saying don't try to change things, but maybe I'm just cynical. But
That seems to kind of be the message in the song, The Plan, that like you can want to change things and you can try to be part of a movement to change things, but like things don't really change in the long scheme of things.
yeah, kind of like the whole plan is just the plan, and you can't change the plan.
Well, so I really appreciated the talk. I really enjoyed meeting you and learning more about the music and band that I've listened to a lot.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. That's the end of the interview. You can find a companion video that has some extra information and videos to follow along with. The link to that's in the show notes. And if you enjoy the podcast, be sure to leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people find it. And until next time, this has been Spilled Theory. Thanks.